Hi everybody, this is Justina with JustynaTHandMade. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to create this boxy edition of the Savvy Zipper pouch. This idea came to me when my sister asked me for a cosmetic bag that will have some depth and dimension to it, but she wants something longer that would fit an electric toothbrush in. So I played with some ideas and I end up making her a cosmetic bag like that is already on the way to her. I really like the idea of boxing the Savvy Zipper pouch pattern, so I decided to share it with you. So as you can see, I'm just following the idea of using up the most out of your printed see-through vinyl, as they can be pretty pricey. So to make sure I have the fun look of the vinyl, I'm gonna extend the use of it with a waterproof canvas that is relatively inexpensive but has the waterproof lining on the back of the fabric, so it should work just fine for a cosmetic bag. So like I said, this bag is has box corners, and also I decided to cover the box corners with some binding. All the instructions will be in the video, and here I have to come clean that I was going to make a handle for the bag using this 1/2 inch black webbing, but through the video it slipped my mind and I forgot to add it. But this is something that you may consider doing. I would just add a handle in my box corner if I remembered, so you have something to grab onto when you are using your cosmetic bag. As you already know from the thumbnail on YouTube, this is a free pattern. All the dimensions that I'm using for all my cuts are in the description box below. You don't need to download any file, just extend the description box and all the needed dimensions for your cuts will be there. Since this is a free pattern, and as you know, I have a lot of free pattern on my YouTube channel, but if you would like to support my channel, watching the video, leaving a comment, giving the video a like, it's a very good way to support my channel. But if you would like to send me a couple bucks, you can just use the thanks option on YouTube, and I will definitely appreciate the support. So now just make sure that you are a subscriber to my channel, and if you would like to follow me on social media, you can join my Facebook group or follow me on Instagram. Links to both are in the description box below. And don't forget to visit my Etsy store. I have close to 60 patterns on my Etsy store at this point. A lot of them come with the video tutorials, and there will be more videos, tutorials created, so there's a good chance that all of them soon will come with the video instructions for your convenience. And now, if you want to see how this little boxy bag comes together, please keep watching. To start our project, we're gonna prep all our pattern pieces and our supplies. It's not really that much. We just need a piece of clear printed vinyl, which I have here. All the measurements that I'm using for my pouch will be provided in the description box below, but you can totally customize the sizing of it based on the material you have and what size of a pouch you want to create. The piece I'm using measures 7 inches in width, and it's about 12 inches tall. Then I have my 2 pieces cut off waterproof canvas, and then they are 4.5 inches in width and the same height as my clear vinyl piece. So that's all our main fabric for the pouch. I also cut 2 strips of 1-inch waterproof canvas pieces for my binding. This is optional. You can use any other material for binding. Just if you're using something that is woven, make sure it's folded on the raw edges. For my zipper, I'm going to be using number 5 zipper. I like to use that tape because it's wider, and with the technique I attach the zipper to my pouch, I need wider fabric side along my coils. And also I have my zipper pull number 5 that I'm going to be using with the little flower, and I'm going to be using this 1/2 inch webbing tape for my handle. So first we're gonna start with creating the main panel of our pouch. So I'll move everything else to the side. Take your pieces, making sure that your printed vinyl is the right side up. Place the waterproof canvas pieces right sides together, so now you are looking at the wrong side of your waterproof canvas, and clip along the long edges. And when you have your project prep like this, you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along those 2 long edges with the 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, whatever suits you better. If your clear vinyl is very sticky, you can use some parchment paper or so tissue paper underneath, so it slides nicely on the bed of your machine. So take your project to the machine, sew those 2 long edges together, and make sure to backstitch on the beginning and on the end of your seam. Now that the side panels are attached, we're gonna open them, finger press them. When you have your panel prep like this, you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch the waterproof canvas panels, making sure the seam allowance is nice and flat behind it, with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. Now that your panels are top stitched, you can attach your back tack. If that's something you want to do, just make sure you're taking under consideration your boxing of the back, so don't put it somewhere on the top or close to the center, because that's gonna end up being on the top of your pouch or on the bottom, which won't be visible at all. So if you are sewing your tag on, I would just consider the boxing of the pouch before I find the perfect place for my tag. Since I'm attaching my tag with rivets, I can do it after my pouch is completed, so I have the perfect placement after my final decision of the size of my box corners. And now that we have our panels connected, we're gonna attach our zipper. And here you have a couple options. If you are very comfortable with attaching your zipper pull on your zipper, you can cut the zipper a bit shorter, because we're gonna be cutting out those corners anyways. But if you are afraid that it might be difficult to insert your zipper pull, you can make sure that the zipper is a bit longer on one side, so then you're gonna have more space to work with when it's time to insert your zipper pull. So now that I have my panels ready, I know the size of it, so I know that my zipper doesn't have to be any larger than the top edge of my panel. So now I can cut it to size. After I cut it, I like to zap the ends. And also it's always a good idea to test your zipper and your zipper pull to make sure everything works properly before you attach it to your project. This doesn't have to be precise, you just want to make sure that your zipper and your zipper pull works. Mine does, so now I have a confidence to move forward with my project. So now I'm gonna place the zipper coil side down and clip it along one of the top edges. When I have that done, I'm gonna mark 1 inch from each side of the zipper. You can just eyeball it, it doesn't have to be super precise. When you have that marked, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew your zipper on from the mark end to the other mark end. You're gonna be sewing straight. You're not gonna be trying to slip the zipper tape off. No, you're gonna be sewing the zipper tape on straight. We will just leave this part unsewn so we can complete our sides before we box our pouch. So take your project to the machine and sew the zipper on with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can use 2.5 or 3.5 stitch length. Now that we have the tape, the zipper tape sewn to the first top edge, we're gonna flip our project over and bring the tape to the other top edge, making sure that our panel seams align. So you want to have a nice alignment on the top. And clip the zipper tape on the edge. And now you can again mark your 1 inch places. And when you have that prepped, you're gonna take the project back to the machine and you're gonna sew the other side of the zipper tape onto your project with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 2.5 or 3.5 stitch length. And now that we have our zipper tape attached to both sides of our main panel, we're gonna split the zipper tape. You're gonna now finger press the tape so it's in the up position on both sides. You can use clips to help yourself with the positioning of it. And when you have your project prepped like this, you're gonna take it back to the machine and you're gonna top stitch on the zipper tape around the seam with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and 3.5 stitch length. You're gonna start your top stitch where your seam starts and ends. So you're gonna be top stitching from this point to that point. So take it to the machine and top stitch the zipper in place. Now that your zipper is top stitched and now it stays nicely in the final position, we're gonna work on our sides. So you're gonna take your project and bring it together. Again, you want to make sure that your clear panels are nicely aligned on top. And now you're gonna clip your sides together. And now you are probably a little alarmed, thinking, wait a minute, it should not be the wrong sides together, but that's exactly how we want it. We're gonna be using the French seam, which means that we're gonna sew the project together from the right side, and then we're gonna encase our raw edges and our seam allowances in the second seam that's gonna be sewn from the wrong side. So if you have your project prepped like this is exactly how it should look like. And now you're gonna take it to the machine and you're gonna sew along those two edges with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If your edges align perfectly and you are comfortable, you can sew with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, because if we are sewing with a bigger seam allowance, we're gonna trim it. So take your project to the machine and sew both sides with the 1/8 or 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So now my sides are sewn. I'm gonna now trim my seam allowance. And now I'm gonna turn my project wrong side out. If your clear vinyl is very stiff, just try to warm it up with heating up your pressing mat and then gently heating up the vinyl, or you can use a hair dryer to gently heat up your vinyl, and that should help with the flexibility of it. And now you're gonna roll the seams to make sure that they are nice and straight, and that the seam allowances on the right side are the same size. Don't worry about the corners because we're gonna cut them out anyways when we are boxing our pouch. And now when you have your project prepped like this, you're gonna take it back to the machine. And now that your seam allowances inside should be about 1/8 of an inch, you're gonna be sewing those two sides with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And this way we're gonna encase our raw seam allowances inside of our French seam. Now that our side seams are completed, and you should always check to make sure you cut the seam allowances and nothing is sticking out. If you have any seam allowances fabric sticking out, just increase the seam allowance on your second seam on both sides, and just make sure you are catching the fabric inside. And now we're gonna move on to boxing our corners. And here the longer zipper tape come into play. Also, if you are not a confident zipper pull handler just yet, you can turn your project right side out. That should make the zipper zipper pull installation easier. But if you feel pretty comfortable, you can do what I'm gonna show you. So we want to install our zipper pull. You can choose your side, which side you think looks better, and that make that your front side of your pouch. And now we're gonna insert our zipper. We want to make sure that we're gonna align our panels here, so I'm gonna clip that. And now I'm gonna insert my zipper pull. I have a little ends of my zipper, so I can do it from this side. Obviously, if your zipper is even longer, it should be even easier to do it. Now you wanna make sure that the panels align, which is looking pretty good to me. and pull the zipper all the way through and reinsert it again. Bring the zipper pull to the middle. If you inserted the zipper pull right side out, now you wanna secure the zipper on this side, because obviously you have to open your zipper to turn your project out, and you want to make sure that this end of the zipper won't come undone. So just take some thread and some needle to just temporarily sew this part of the zipper so it's not gonna come undone. Since I have my project wrong side out already, I can move forward to boxing my corners. On this project, I don't want it to be too deep, but you can choose the size of the corners, how deep you want them to be. I think I'm gonna measure 3/4 of an inch on each corner. So on the bottom part, you're gonna be measuring from the seam line and from the bottom fold. On the part with the zipper, you want to measure from the top of the zipper and from the seam line. You want to measure from this part. Don't measure because this part is loose, so just make sure you are referring to this zipper line. And now that we have everything marked, we're gonna cut our corners. Now that we have our corners cut, we're gonna box them. So you wanna bring the side to the bottom. If you want to, you can actually mark your midpoint. On the top corners, you want your seam line to be in the middle of your coils, and make sure you are folding the seam allowance in the same direction. And now that you have all your corners clipped, you're gonna take your project to the machine and you're gonna sew all the corners, making sure you're backstitching well on the beginning and on the end of each seam with the 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. If you are more comfortable with a larger seam allowance, you can do that, or if you want to enlarge your boxes, we can always trim the seam allowance afterwards. Now, after the corners are boxed, you can trim the seam allowances. And at this point, you can just really zap the fabric because it's a polyester with a lighter. Or you can use the prepped little binding pieces to bind the seam allowances. That's what I'm gonna do. You can cut the binding to size after you box your corners. My two pieces were 1 inch by 9 inches long, so I have 4.5 inches by 1 inch. I also zapped the edges of the fabric to just make sure I don't have any little flyaways. And now I'm gonna wrap my corners into the binding. And when I have all my box corners covered in my binding, I'm gonna take my project back to the machine and I'm gonna top stitch the binding in place about 1/8 of an inch away from the raw edges. You want to start your seam where your fold is. You don't need to sew all the way through. You want to make sure that you are starting your seam and back stitching where the fabric of the pouch is. So take your project to the machine and top stitch the binding pieces onto your seams. Alright, so my binding is now on, and I was lucky enough to catch both sides of the binding on all 4 corners. Now it's time to trim our extra fabric. So what you want to do, you want to follow the line of the panel. And now I'm gonna zap the sides of the binding, and because this is all polyester, you can just close the sides. Just be careful, don't burn your fingers. And now that you have your binding finished, you're gonna turn your project right side out. Like I said before, if your vinyl is really stiff, you can just heat it up a little bit. My Savvy zipper pouch, the Boxy Edition, it's now ready to use. As you can see, I added my handmade tag also, so now it's fully completed. If you are having trouble with the vinyl keeping the shape, just fill the pouch with towels and just apply a little heat and let it cool, so then the vinyl will just keep the shape. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you're gonna give the project a go. If you do, please make sure to share it with me on social media, so you can post your pictures in the Facebook group or tag me on Instagram. Links to both are in the description below. And if you would like to support my small business and you would like to see any patterns that I have for sale, please visit the link to my Etsy store and see if you like any patterns that I have for sale there. If you don't want to miss any upcoming videos, please make sure you are subscribed to my channel and that you have checked the notification bell. Till the next time.